Journal entry number 3, mix attempt number 1, date 9 August 2020, time 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The mix in the study today is Hungarian dance number 5. Performing artists are Christian Bose and Tobias Knecht. References and multitracks were downloaded for free from cambridgemt.com. A sincere thanks to Mike Senior, Christian Bose, and Tobias Knecht for providing these for free for non-commercial practices. Part 1 of this mix attempt is analyzing the real world release in detail, all that is going on the track, and note down the findings to faithfully replicate it with the best of my ability with some minor changes of my own. Now, this musical piece is a modified version of Hungarian Dance Number 5 by Johannes Brahms. The original composition is an arrangement for an orchestra. Here it is a duet. It feels a little different but still very nice. I will now play the reference track and start. Oops. Now, starting with the analysis, I'll follow a very simple, very flexible generic framework. And these are all the questions I ask in the process and in this mix. Following are my deductions. This list will improve and more and more points will be introduced or removed as I grow with my practice. First thing, the very basic question, that is the number of instruments and performance details. Now there are mainly two voices, saxophone and a guitar, and it's a duet and it's a saxophone preferred performance. The saxophone volume level is relatively more than a guitar. There is a give and take in the performance, which is captured in the recording to an extent and enhanced further using some volume automation. And the guitar performance, especially in the starting seconds of the track, the high notes in the strumming pattern on the guitar has their own roles in playing some low volume, high pitch harmonics. They are not very obvious, so I believe this was done intentionally. It is not just high frequency boost to add some air or noise, they are contributing harmonically. The air popping and key sounds of saxophone is removed almost completely. There is a faint presence, a hint, but rest is taken care of very beautifully. It seems like the saxophone is present in very low end also, but that is not the case. Only the guitar is responsible for that part, which while both are present in the remaining spectrum. Now, fundamental voices. Fundamental voices are the voices or instruments which acts as a base or a foundation for all the other voices and the overall track. These voices drive the track from start to the end and give all the tracks an anchor point pivoted to which they all move around in the sound field. One small hint to select them is that these tracks are present most of the time in the track. That is, they are being played for a longer duration in the sound field than all the other tracks. It could be one instrument or more. This idea is not a fact, just a minor observation, a side point, which can help gather some more information. In this mix, the guitar and the saxophone both are the fundamental voices because this performance as a whole is designed this way. The guitar is not very far away from the saxophone, and saxophone is there to give and take the role all the time. I can say with ease that they are fundamental to this track. It's also very obvious by the idea that this is a duet. Both are important. This concludes that mix will be attempted while taking both as anchors. Even though there are only two voices here, they still have some roles to play. It's like in a cinema where there's a lead role, some supporting roles, some significant but less often appearances. Here we have a guitar and a saxophone with a game of catch and throw. While it is true that both are present in the track all the time, the saxophone dominates the performance, making the guitar play the supportive role, which I think is intentional here. Now they are not moving from their places to left or right, only forward and backward. This is clearly some volume or reverb drive at control automation. I strongly believe that their placement in the sound field, from my perspective in 2D space, is like this. The guitar body is placed almost in the center, just a little to the left. A guitar body means frequencies after 100 Hz, which are placed like this. Frequencies from 30 to 100 Hz are somehow placed in the dead left. Now, see here, what happens when I gradually reduce the stereo width from 100% to mono. The low frequencies are suffering because of it. The guitars still have some bass frequencies, but they are not very clear anymore. The low end is now gone. Moving from mono to stereo further confirms what is placed where and how they are affected in this exercise. Now, I observe some distortion in the right channel at timestamps. The first one, na 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 na. Second one is here. Na na. And the third one, again at na 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 na. Now, volume automation could be one of the catalysts contributing to this behavior, but clipping is definitely there. It's neither harsh or hard or even soft. It sounds like it is leaning towards soft. In this case, whether this phenomena at these timestamps is appealing or not, only the artist can tell whether it is intentional or it was introduced during an export or transcoding process. Now, one very obvious effects here is reverb. Now, reverb here, there is not much tail present in the reverb used on the saxophone performance. The body of saxophone reverb also is not taking much space, hence keeping it confined to one part of the sound field. Sounds of guitar slides, which does not contain pitch, are enhanced with reverb. The reverb which is used, if compared to the real world, is more like a small size room. Pre-delay is not long and sounds like the tail is gated. After many listening sessions, I believe that the reverb on the instruments are positioned like this in the sound field in front of me. The guitar is represented with a green solid line and the saxophone is with the pink. The blue color semicircle is the sound field in front of me. There is left and right extremes and 50% panning markers on both sides. Now the low frequency part of the guitar reverb is positioned dead left and is consistent with the played notes with some variation in the levels to make the performance interesting. The saxophone is taking the right channel. I think the reverb is acting as a grease on the clipping of the saxophone. Now the next FX which is used applied both on saxophone and guitar is the cause of the stereo image it is right now. That is a delay. The delays here are not very obvious because they are low volume delays panned to the opposite channel. The delay configuration here is also known as hash delays. There is a podcast on hash delays by Mike Senior on soundonsound.com with examples and detailed explanation. Following reasons confirmed the use of hash delays here in this track on both the saxophone and the guitar. Now, the saxophone delay on opposite channel is present during the whole track but can be observed more clearly at timestamps. The saxophone is taking the right channel, but notice in the left channel. Second one. The last one. Now, even though the delayed applied using guitar performance is present on the opposite channel the entire time, which is hiding and playing its part very nicely, the last strum on the guitar at the very end with a faint identical version on the opposite channel gave away the secret. The guitar is primarily playing in the left channel. So in the right channel, it sounds like it is below the saxophone in the extreme right. Hence, here the low volume pan delays used in the performance are positioned like this. Now, all this information about the different voices, their positions, roles, and effects used has allowed me to get a bigger picture like this. In addition to the information until now, the thicker green solid line area filled with light brown color is guitar, and thicker pink solid line area filled with light orange color is saxophone. The bigger dotted enclosures with the same colors as of the instruments shows the overall area they are playing in. Now, this doesn't tell me anything about the sonic signatures I experienced during those listening sessions. Maybe someday when I learn how to represent them into words. Also, the listening sessions were not exactly the same. Sometimes I had to sit while some noise was being produced at a distance. Other listening sessions were done in the late night. 90% of these sessions were done with no external noise or any kind of influence on the listening practice. So everything I mentioned here was common and same in all the settings. This ends this journal entry. Next journal entry will contain the study I will do on raw multitracks that were used in this release.